3 months after Brexit, what the Conservative government likes to portray as transition problems threatens thousands of export-oriented companies on the island. 3 months after the UK finally left the EU internal market, Brexit is only a marginal issue in the public debate. Of course, the COVID pandemic, with all its social, economic and political implications, remains the dominant topic. Impressive figures already prove the decoupling of the kingdom from the largest economic area in the world. What proportion of this is attributable to the decision of the electorate 5 years ago and its interpretation by the Conservative government? And what is owed to SARS-CoV-2? We don't really have an answer, says Thomas Sampson, professor at the London School of Economics, the LSE. And we only know something drastic happened there. When it came to the contract on future economic relations, London insisted on keeping the greatest possible distance from Brussels before Christmas. A close agreement for freight transport was concluded. Services such as the work of bankers, traders and lawyers in the City of London, the largest international banking centre in the world, were not included. These make up 80% of the British economy. Since then, the EU has treated the ex-member as a neighbouring third country, what it is. The flourishing and extremely lucrative for member states like Germany trade in goods, and its traffic is being hampered by diverse bureaucracy and new fees. And the result is, in January, British exports to the domestic market fell by 40% compared to January 2020. In the case of imports, which are vital for the UK's food supply, the effect remains limited because the London government has simply suspended the introduction of the new customs and tax regime until July, and that unilaterally. In order to be able to seriously quantify the politically highly controversial economic consequence of Brexit, the London think tank Centre for European Reform, the CER, which is close to the EU, devised a double for the British economy after the referendum in June 2016. Up to this point, the development on the island had been comparable to a quartet of friendly industrial countries: the USA, Canada, New Zealand and Germany. Over time, this model calculation will allow us to say how much Britain's trade was affected by Brexit, said CER Vice Director John Springford in a recent LSE webinar. One thing is already certain: the gross domestic product of the real country was already 3% lower than that of the fictitious doppelganger, although the kingdom was still part of the internal market and customs union at that time. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government is responding to criticism of its enthusiasm for Brexit with two arguments. On the one hand, the COVID effect. On the other hand, the necessarily difficult transition after 48 years of membership in the European Economic Area. First, it is said that the consequences of leaving the EU are negligible compared to the massive COVID effect. According to the ONS, the National Statistics Agency, the economy shrank by 9.8% in 2020, and the recovery is still pending this year. More than 30 million people have now been vaccinated at SARS-CoV-2 at least once on the island, 45.5% of the entire population. But the request to work from home continues to apply. In the largest part of England, pubs, restaurants and retail outlets will remain closed until the beginning of next week. Poison for the economy. With a view to Brexit, representatives of the government, secondly, like to use the term teething troubles or teething problems. Literally, problems with teething. Media from the left liberal Guardian to the conservative Sunday Times, however, keep supplying new examples of long-term problems. For many companies with tens of thousands of employees that rely on smooth trade, what they encounter in everyday life has long felt like permanent toothache. Take fish, for example. Like other third countries, Brussels is now also requiring British fisheries to clean their products before importing them. As a result, the lucrative export of mussels and oysters from British coastal waters has practically come to a standstill. completely contrary to the expectations of the industry, the majority of which had enthusiastically supported Brexit. The government had promised them and their colleagues unhindered access to the internal market. And that's why John Holmyard of Offshore Shellfish in Brixham, Devon, told the BBC, that was even true in the case of no deal. That means a chaotic exit from the EU without any affiliation agreement. Faced with reality, the London Brexiteers blame the EU. Brussels' approach is unacceptable and unnecessary, complains Agriculture Minister George Eustace. And in this case, I really have to get to the quote from many commentators. In this case, I really have to agree with the George Eustace. A minister has to know what it means to be a third country to the EU. The UK was long enough part of the EU to know what rules apply to third countries and what rules apply to members only. And so they all have known what was coming. They must have been completely delusioned if they thought they can leave and keep the benefits of the members. And even Prime Minister Johnson has urged the British people to patriotically consume local produce. The totally stressed fisherman, Holmyard, can only smile tiredly about this. We have delivered 95% of our goods to the continent, he says. The domestic market does not make up for that. Yet take imports, for example. The Rivelli Capelli wig studio in Nottingham has so far imported most of its goods from Germany without any problems. The clientele consists mainly of cancer patients whose hair has been robbed by chemotherapy, reports co-owner Ian Brooks, after whose husband, Michael Rivelli, the salon is named. It's a difficult subject. A lot of people don't want to think about it. This is precisely why short delivery times within a few days were so convenient. In the meantime, a delivery from Frankfurt not only takes at least 2, often 4 weeks, it also costs 15% more. This has to do with the additional costs for staff and bureaucracy. A new payment form and the papers for all customs formalities must be properly filled out. The notification and advance payment of the courier services takes additional time. And next example, exports. Frog Bikes in Pontypool in Wales sells its children's bikes in 22 EU member states. The prices have already risen by 19% as a result of the enormous additional costs of around 294,000 euros, which the small company with a turnover of 14.1 million euros incurred in the first 2 months of the new year alone. Company owner Jerry Lawson says these aren't teething troubles. There is a structural problem here and so far no solution. And I have to disagree with Jerry there. It's not a structural problem with this where you can find a solution. It is the rules that apply to third countries. And that will not change. There's a lot that still has to be negotiated. But none of these negotiations will be about the rules of the EU for third countries. They will remain. A lot of commentators from the Brexiteer side say the EU is protectionist. Yeah, of course they are. They are protecting their members. They are protecting their members' markets. They are protecting their members' income. That is one important part why we have the EU. It's not the only one, because even a lot of nonsense is built there. The more and more political unification was always in the minds of those who founded everything. The intention was there from the beginning, and even Winston Churchill, who didn't see the UK taking part there, but even he thought exactly that when and he stated that in the 40s. And so that is always going to develop from the beginning. So it's not, they were founded as a trading organization and were never supposed to be anything else. That is just a lie. You might believe this lie. You might have believed a lot of lies in the last 6 years. But I will not remain silent and let you just uncomment spill those lies. And that's why the EU will protect their members and no third country will get the benefits of those members. And that's why we're going to talk about this topic for a very long time. And when the pandemic is over, then we will talk again. Well, I'll talk in the meantime, but you know what I mean. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.